Hey, greetings. This is Professor Rude. You can call me Professor Rude. You can call me Mr. Rude. You can call me Jordan. All of those are me. So I thought I would make a video just to kind of walk you through the syllabus for human sexuality and take a look at the Canvas page a bit too. Don't worry, I won't make this, super exhaustive where you read the syllabus word for word, but I wanted to kind of introduce myself and also look over some of the basics for course material. So I think we're going to start. I'm going to share my screen and we'll look at our Canvas page first, and then we'll get into the syllabus a bit. So my Canvas page looks like this when I come to my dashboard. Hey, guess what? I can plug my own classes here. If you are interested in psychology or a psychology major or minor, then here's the courses I teach. So if you want to take more classes with me, I teach research methods, I teach statistics, social psychology, intro psych, human sexuality. That's about everything I teach here on the campus. So if you want to take another class with me, I'd love to have you. Come on over. Okay, but for us, this class is human sexuality. So let's begin there. Hey, there we are. That's us with those brains humping each other. Um, Okay, so I set the course up this way. Everything is just very, very simple on Canvas, just basic modules all on one page. So I do that because I've been teaching for about 20 years, and about 19 of those I've been teaching online as well. And what my students continually tell me, even though we have advancements in the way that in technology and the way that we can present material to students through our learning management systems, like this, they can be super advanced. But I don't know if you guys are the same, but so far all my students, they don't care about that, or they don't want it. So this is all based on student feedback. If you don't like it, I want your feedback. But just so you know, it feels weird. I'm like, I could make it pretty, I could make it cool, but my students are like, we don't care, we don't want it. Just give us everything on one screen. Like, I hear you. So here it is on one screen. Unfortunately, with Canvas, I cannot make this screen pretty. So here we are. It just looks like modules, but it is all on one screen per request. So everything's in modules. That means that on top, I'm going to put the materials that will, you know, be important for the entirety of the class. So anytime you want to reference like the syllabus or my office hours, if you have a question you want to send in and a reminder about how I grade discussions, like all that is right here in the class materials for you. It'll stay right on the top of the page. And we'll look at the syllabus in a sec. For office hours, every Monday evening from 6 to 7, I'll be in Zoom. You can follow the link here. If you click on office hours, it'll take you into Zoom. And if I'm not there right at 6, just hang on for a sec. I'm on my way. Um, yeah. And by the way, you don't have to meet during office hours. That's just if you have something you want to talk about, or if you have a question you need an answer to, feel free to come on by. I'll just be hanging out, and whoever pops in, and we'll chat. And if that's you, happy you're there, right? Okay, another thing before we get to syllabus. For this class, because it's a human sexuality class, I am going to put a lot of things, in my PowerPoints that you might be, I mean, I don't know where you're coming from or where it is you're going to view the material for class, but like there will be images of like human sexual anatomy, right? Human bodies that will show up on those slides. If you don't want somebody to see that, just remind yourself like, oh yeah, what class am I looking at right now? Is there anybody looking over your shoulder and you don't want them to see it? I just want to bring that up now because it's come up in the past. Like, I was in this coffee shop and I was looking at the slides, and all of a sudden there's just like all these penises everywhere, and people around me drinking their coffee or doing like a spit take, like, whoa, that person's looking at a lot of penises on their screen. I mean, that didn't actually happen. I'm making a joke, but I could see that happening. So just be aware, right? Aware of that I'm not going to use like I don't know, like super safe, uh, like boring kind of cartoon images to teach you about human sexuality, because you're not a boring cartoon, right? We all have real bodies, so we got real pictures of real people. Anyway, related to that, like if there's questions that are going to pop up that are sensitive in nature for you, for sure, I'm sure that'll happen. And if you want to send those questions in to me, I'm happy to try to answer them for you. If I don't know an answer, then I'm happy to look one up for you and report back. That makes this class kind of rich and fun. And But sometimes students don't want their name attached. It's somehow embarrassing for them, or in some way it's embarrassing for them. And if that's the case, you're like, I really want to ask about this question, but I want my name attached to it. Use this anonymous form and you can send those questions in. What I typically do is, if you're thinking of that question, you're probably not the only one in our class. And I'll try to answer all those questions weekly in a separate video that you're just like, I don't know what we'll call them, like human sexuality Q&A or something like that. And I'll answer all those questions for you. That's how I've done it in the past. Sometimes it's the most interesting part of the class, right? Because I have no idea what questions you have. So send them in if you got them. You can also send in questions about the class in general. If you have questions about like the papers or due dates or something like that, you can write that here too. But you can also just email me. Okay. So the class, what else do we have in Canvas? We got student resources here. They have all these different links to services on campus or how to be successful online. Those are all here for you. And then there's two papers for the class, and they have their own separate modules here for in our course. So I'm not going to go over these papers in detail in this video because I already have videos where I've done that. So you can go watch those on your own, but I can just touch base on them. So the first one's an article summary. So this is you're going to find a scientific article in the field of human sexuality. So you have to look up literature from scientific journals. Don't worry, there are hundreds and hundreds of articles, that would qualify for this assignment. And you're basically going to tell me what happened. What do these scientists do, right? What study did they perform? And just write it out to me in a way that, I can understand it from beginning to end and follow the little rubric I have for you. You should be fine. But it's just to introduce you to scientific writing on the topic of human sexuality. Probably not as sexy as you imagine, right? They're scientific papers. Okay, and the second paper is a personal sexual philosophy paper. So this one is all about you, as a human animal, by nature. Um, you are a sexual being, or at the very least, you have to think about, questions about sexuality. Even if you're asexual and you're not very interested in sex, you still had to come to that conclusion. So, what is your personal sexual philosophy? There's no wrong answers here. I just want you to have I want you to show me that there was some kind of critical thinking process and how you informed yourself about who you are. And you just have to incorporate three ideas from our class with citations and tell me how they were impactful for you understanding yourself and your own personal sexual philosophy. But watch that video, it'll break it down for you and it'll give you, all the nuts and bolts information you need to write a good paper. Okay, so here's what a typical module looks like for our class. Wait, where's chapter one? What did I do here? I think it's supposed to say chapter one. Huh. That's a weird typo. But anyway, start here on chapter two. Oh, I see. I just put them into each other. They're kind of like chapter one and two all rolled into one because chapter one's kind of short. Okay, so this is pretty typical still of what a module will look like. Imagine this is one chapter here. You're going to have my PowerPoint that I use for the videos that I make. And this one says sex research. Oh, okay, yeah, this is the chapter one, chapter two. Just chapter one is really, really short. That's right. So it's going to be like history and then getting into like how is research done on the topic of human sexuality. So you watch my lecture videos here for the intro and then for how to study human sexuality. What do sexologists do, right? And that's going to be the most informative thing for you for our class are these lecture videos. The textbooks are great. Textbooks are always behind in the times culturally. You think about when you write a textbook, you're writing one to put out next year. But by the time it comes out, things may have changed, especially socially and culturally. Biologically, maybe not, right? Maybe some big breakthroughs would have to happen. Excuse me. But that could happen too. So textbooks are usually a little bit behind. The lecture videos are going to be really where what my exams are based on. So if I talk about it in a lecture video, it's going to show up on an exam. There's going to be things in every chapter that I just don't have time to cover everything. And if I don't talk about it right in my lecture video, but it's in the chapter, I'm probably not going to ask you about it on the exam. So I feel like it's only fair if I engaged with that material that I'm asking you to engage with, right? So watch my lecture videos. That's my piece of advice for you. And then complete, each module will have its own quiz and discussion. The quizzes are no big deal. They're multiple choice. There's 10 of them, 1 point each. If you have your book, you've watched the lecture video, there should be no problem. right? It's just another way to, get you to engage with the material. The discussions, I feel like I have the best discussions for this class compared to all of my classes. Let's see what this first one is. Hopefully, it's an interesting one after I said that. Oh, this is an interesting one. Yeah, yeah. This is fun to watch. Fun and sad in a way. It's all about sex education. And I want you to watch this video, respond to it, right? Give me a paragraph of your thoughts on the video. It's a little dated now, but things haven't gotten better in the field of sex education. In fact, they've gotten worse. So you can watch this video and then imagine, like, hey, it's even worse now than when this video was made. Hey, look, someone already responded to it. So that's all you got to do for this discussion video. I think you'll like it, even if politically you don't like John Oliver. You know, some people who lean right don't really, probably never watched his show, probably never would, or might hate watch it, kind of thing. On this topic, I mean, he's spot on this, and his examples and the research he cites, really, really good. Okay, so sometimes it's a video I want you to watch. Sometimes it's something I want you to read. Most time, though, in this class, the discussions are here's this topic on the field of human sexuality. There's no right or wrong answer, but how do you feel if you had to pick a side, side A or side B, or say yes or no to this? What would you say, and why would you say it? Right? And it's kind of interesting to see, your peers' thoughts on this. I don't know if it'll hold true for you guys. We'll see. But in the past, my courses have told me that these were the best discussion threads they've had in a class. So I'm pretty happy about that. I tried to make that happen, but it all depends on you guys and how interesting your responses are. Okay, let's get into the syllabus now, and then we'll wrap this video. We'll wrap it up. I gotta stop sharing. Let me stop sharing. And let me pull up my syllabus here. Give me a sec. Why did that window minimize? Cool. Okay, so here is the syllabus. Hopefully, you're all in the right place for human sexuality. I like this quote from Alice Walker. She says, "Sexuality is one of the ways that we become enlightened, actually, because it leads us to self knowledge." You know, this is one of those classes I wish people had, in depth, before they're sexually active. It always seems kind of silly, like to have, it's not silly, but it would be more useful for, say, if, for example, to have somebody write a personal sexual philosophy before they're sexually active, right? Because it's kind of like, here's what I'm not into, here's what I won't do, here's what sex means to me. Like, here are my, my sense of morality or ethics on this topic. It's good to have those thoughts, before you're actually sexually active and you're just going like, I don't know, right? So you can definitely learn about yourself for sure, and when going through this class. Oh, and by the way, so I mentioned that, yeah, in this class we're going to touch on topics that are could be very sensitive for you in nature, but and based on your past and who you currently are, and that's totally cool. I'm not here to espouse like how you should be. That is not my goal ever for this class, except for on some very specific topics about like sexual aggression. I have some pretty hardline thoughts in there. But other than that, it's kind of like I don't tell you who to be, right? Your sexuality is so personal to you. I don't judge you for it. I wouldn't want you to judge me for it. But here's one way that I've seen this happen in this class, that where it's kind of started to go off the rails sometimes. We could bring it back quickly, but we're not here to shame anybody for their sexuality. So, like, definitely if you're within a marginalized group that has to do with your gender or your sexual orientation, I'm going to be, a defender for you and a champion for you in this online format, because I don't want to see anybody insulted or shamed for, just because what you're doing isn't, typical of most people, or that's ludicrous. We're a diverse species. We do all kinds of things. Why should gender or sexuality be like any different, right? There's diversity everywhere, biologically and socially. We'll talk about it. The same things goes. The same thing goes if you're not. If you're part of like, what is typical. What I mean by that is like being cis, right? So I mean like being um, straight, and your behaviors and your expression of your gender and your identity as far as your gender goes, kind of matches, the quote unquote norm, why don't you be shamed for that either? Right? This class is about human sexuality. It's not a queer theory class. Right? We don't offer that. It'd be cool if we did, and I wouldn't teach that class being a straight guy. I feel like, nah, I'm the wrong guy for that. But this is a human sexuality class. I'm sensitive to every walk of life in here. You're all welcome. I love you all. Um, we're not here to shame each other. No matter what your sexual orientation or your gender is, yeah, we're all here to learn from each other. Find it all fascinating, right? Aren't we so interesting? Okay. So if I hadn't said it already, I think I did. My name is Jordan Rude. You can call me Jordan. That's fine. If that's too informal, you can call me Professor Rude or Mr. Rude. Those are my titles. Those are cool. Easiest way to get hold of me is to email me. And, my campus email is jrude at bakersfieldcollege.edu. You can email me through Canvas as well. I did over the summer. There were a couple of times where people emailed me through Canvas and it didn't come through. So I would say if I don't get back to you within, let's say, like 48 hours, if I don't get back to you within 48 hours, send a message to this email for sure, right? The jroot at bakersfieldcollege.edu. And I'll definitely get back to you. I'm never, intentionally ignoring anybody. Okay. Our class is 100% online. I should say that 100% online. You never have to meet with me at any time you don't want to, right? But if you need to or you want to, then Monday from 6 to 7 p.m., follow the Zoom link. I'll be there. I'll be hanging out. People will be popping in and out, chatting with us. We'll be answering questions, maybe having a good time. Come on in, but there's no pressure to, you don't ever, it's not mandatory. Okay, course description stuff. I can do student learning outcomes or I can do the course description. Let's see which is shorter. Let's do the course description. Oh, yeah, it's got a good word in there I can explain. Okay, so this class emphasizes the biopsychosocial aspects of human sexuality across the developmental lifespan. So from, pre-birth to death, right? And within there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of milestones that relate to our sexuality. And biopsychosocial means we break it down. We're going to look at it biologically. We're going to look at that psychologically, and we're going to look at those sociologically as well, right? So all the way from like what's going on in your body, to that microcosm, all the way out to the macrocosm of, society. So lots of things we'll talk about in here. So, for example, we'll talk about, of course, human sexual systems, so your biology, right? The act of sex itself and the different forms it takes, what that looks like and what's happening in your body and emotionally and everything. Okay. Changing sexual attitudes and behaviors. We'll talk about how those are kind of formed, maintained, and how they might be changed. And then gender identity issues. We'll talk about sexual health a lot. We'll talk about sexual orientation. We'll talk about sexual problems that people have and the treatments of those problems. And a big one, of course, is sexual communication. So lots of topics we're going to go over, within this course. And other things about the course for is like materials that you need. You don't need really anything for this course other than the textbook. And the book I'm using this semester is by Crooks. It's called Our Sexuality. And you get that through a company called Cengage. I'll double check. It was working last time I checked. You should be able to purchase that directly through a Cengage link within our Canvas page. And I'll double check that, make sure it's working. If not, I'm sure you'll let me know and I'll get it fixed. You can also get the book through the bookstore. But here's the bottom line. I don't care where you get the book. I just want you to have a copy of the book. That's what I care about, right? If you find a cheap one online, get it, right? You don't need an electronic copy. You can get a hard copy if you want. I don't do anything as far as the assignments go that tie into the publisher's resources where you would, need access to anything other than the text itself. All right, so any way you can find it, right? Okay, BC policy stuff. If you go through DSPS, Disabled Student Program and Services, then let me know because I often, what's most typical is that students need more time for completing assignments for whatever reason, right? It's none of my business really. Like whatever your reason is, DSPS has approved you. I'm working with you, right? Just let me know. The sooner you let me know, the better, though, because it does take a little bit of time on my end to change, how much time an individual gets compared to everybody else on every single assignment. So let me know as soon as you can. If you think that you might need services or accommodations that DSPS can approve, and we can provide, then talk to them right away, sooner rather than later as well, so we can get the ball rolling there. Okay, so all these academic support services, these are all hyperlinked on the Canvas page, so I'm not going to talk about them a lot here. But almost anything and everything that you might need to be successful at BC, there's a link there for you, and you can find it on our page. And if it's not there, let me know, and I'll put a link there for everybody else. Public safety stuff is always a good idea to have public safety numbers in your phone. You never know when you might need it. You'd rather have it than not have it in one of those types of situations. I usually throw that in because sometimes in the past I've taught night classes. People walking across the campus at night. It's like, hey, we gotta take care of each other. You walk in groups, and just to be safe, right? Not that that happens a lot. People are assaulted a lot, but it's not like they aren't, right? So better to be safe. Moving on, academic integrity. Oh man, we're in this arms race right now with ChatGPT and academia, and nobody knows what to do. I listen to I'm kind of like on the border of like Gen X, and then the generation that got no name at all, and then the millennials. I'm like in that gray area, no name. I find myself more like probably more, I don't know, like an elder millennial, young Gen X, I guess, is me. And why I'm saying that is I'm not a total Luddite when it comes to technology. I'm not super advanced either. I'm kind of in the middle, like a lot of people. But I am smart enough to realize that it, there's no way to 100% keep people from using like ChatGPT or even just using Google to cheat on course materials. And I know that some of you are going to do that. I know that a few of you are going to do that the entire way through this course, and I just don't detect it, right? It's just the way it goes. Um, if you have professors that are like, I know how to detect every way of cheating in this class, no, they don't. They don't know what they're talking about. They're being silly. They're just trying to scare you and bluff, right? It's like an arms race. As soon as the software comes out, where it's like, I can detect all Chat GPT. It's like, not anymore. Yes, I can. No, you can't, right? So it's like, you never know what's going to happen. The way I look at it is, if I'm reading your papers and I'm like, damn, a scientist wrote this, is pretty good. It's going to, little red flag for me. I'll run it through material I have to see if I think that you're plagiarizing. But it's so silly. There's not much that you could even plagiarize in this class, or probably things that you wouldn't even mind spending some time thinking about and writing about anyway. I mean, it is sexuality, and you all decided to be here in a class about sex. So if you don't want to write about sex, it's kind of weird. You let someone else do your thinking and writing for you on this topic. Come on, right? So yeah, if I catch somebody cheating, then of course I'll turn you in to student life, and we'll have to go through the paperwork, and you'll get reprimanded, and you imagine there's a system in place if you've never been through it before, and there is, right? And I'll send you through it if we need to. Just don't do it. Just don't cheat. Don't rob yourself of the experience you could have. Okay, course policy stuff. In this course, lots of things come up that are sensitive to people, right? And sometimes you might have a way to express your thoughts you didn't even realize was insensitive, and we can have conversations about that in here. It's a good place to do it. I think a college class, even if it's online, is a good place to have those conversations with people. If we all agree that we're not here to insult each other, even if somebody's different than you, and I never understand that thinking anyway. Look at those people different than me over there having fun, fuck them. It's like, what? Mind your business. But anyway, so be respectful. You could disagree with people in this class. In fact, I want you to. If you do disagree, I want you to disagree. Just do so in a respectful way. It seems to me that from teaching all these years and just watching our society go through what it's going through, watch people communicate on social media. It's like we got to learn how to disagree with somebody, of course, but then people don't always say too that you need to learn how to be disagreed with, right? It goes both ways, right? And if we want to make advancements that people want to see, we want to increase respect. That's what we got to do, right? We got to be tolerant of each other, listen to each other. You don't have to agree, but we got to be able to speak to each other. And so it's a good class, good space to do that. And I'll be monitoring if somebody's just being rude. That's not what I'm talking about. Right? I'm talking about if they're like, I disagree with your philosophy on this, and here's why. Cool. That's what we want, right? It's not like I disagree with your philosophy on this, and you're a piece of shit. That's not what we want. That doesn't help us advance. So it's like, explain yourself, and explain your nuanced response, and we can respond to each other. But I'll be monitoring, make sure that doesn't happen. By the way, I taught this class, I don't know how many times, 50 times or something. And it, most of the time, if people say something disrespectful, they didn't even know it, right? They're like, oh, I didn't know that was disrespectful. My bad. Is usually how it goes, right? Most people that would self-select to be in this course are not like, bigots. They're here because they're interested and maybe they even care, right? So yeah, kind of like same team. We're all learning from each other. So be polite to each other. That goes under netiquette too. Netiquette also means like if you're going to write to me, tell me your name, tell me what your class you're in, so that I can help you. Introduce yourself in every message that you write. I know it sounds silly, but we're trying to get you away from how you talk on social media and in text and how you would in email to say like a professor or a boss that you might have in the future. So, say hello, say your name, at the end, say goodbye, right? Have some kind of sign off message. All right. So this is a safe zone. This class is a safe zone. And what that really means is just like with all marginalized communities, I'm a type of person by nature of what I chose to study, do research on and now teach. I care about like all marginalized groups, being represented. And safe zone, if you see that terminology, it's not the same as safe space when people say that. I mean, it's related, but saying safe zone is very specific. It means that somebody's been through training to be an ally to the LGBTQIA plus community. There's always been people, my whole life, growing up, my whole life, there's always people that I've known and loved, friends and family who are members of this community. And so I've always considered myself like an ally in spirit and kind of in love and like, personal relationships and things. But on a larger scale, like what does that mean if somebody says they're an ally, right? Um, if it's in academia, like your professors, you might see this on a few syllabi, like I have it on mine. It just means that I'm going to be someone who will stand up for the marginalized groups if they're being harassed, that type of thing, obviously. But then also it means that if you're somebody who might need support from the community, something based on your sexuality or your gender, that you can talk to me. I can listen, and also I can steer you in the right direction to find you further support that you might need. So it's a little bit of a burden on my part to make sure that I'm aware of what support is out there in our community and I can steer you toward it. And I'm learning more and more about that all the time. But I can be a resource for you there. I gotcha. Right? Same team. Okay. Late work policy. You guys have so much time to get your work turned in. It's like, the due dates are spaced out like weeks apart. So if like you don't get it turned in, I'm like, I don't tell you. That's, I'm gonna be like, you have like a month to get this done, and now you need more time. Sorry, I'm not gonna give it to you, right? Um, you know, emergencies happen. Just communicate with me. Should something come up that prevents you from turning something in on time. You turn in late, I'm just gonna dock you half points for it. That's the way it's gonna go. So get you to work turned in on time, everybody. Drop policy stuff. If you're gone for like 2 weeks in a row, really, if you like don't turn your assignments in, they're all kind of due in like these big chunks. If we could come across one of those dates and you don't have like quizzes, discussions, the exam done, as a courtesy, I'll send you one email that says you didn't do your work. I'm going to assume that you want to be dropped from the class. Get back to me by this date, and if you don't, I'm going to drop you from the class. Okay. um all right, let's get to the assignments. That's probably what you guys really want to know about anyway. So the assignments or the assessment for the class. Every chapter we go over has a quiz attached to it. A 10 question, 1 point each, 10-point total, multiple choice quiz. It's not designed to like kick your ass or anything. It's just there to help you engage more with the material. I imagine you're going to ace all of these quizzes. They're not tough. If you watch the lecture videos, you look over the book, you'll be good, right? There are exams, of course. The exams are primarily multiple choice. There's some short answer questions. Some of the exams, there's diagrams where you have to label the diagram. So think about like sexual anatomy. Of course, you're going to have to label parts of human sexual anatomy and tell me about the form and function of specific, parts of of anatomy. But most of the time, it's multiple choice questions and short answers. Okay. Discussions. Yes, there's discussions for every chapter as well. Like I said in earlier, I think my discussions are pretty good, but check them out. Then there's an article summary paper. There's the personal sexual philosophy paper, and that's it for everything graded in the class, right? You got 4 exams, you got 2 papers, quizzes, and discussions. Let's see. Here's some important dates for you. Last day to drop with a refund for the class is September 5th. Don't drop this class. This is going to be your easy class. I'm just telling you right now. You put the time in, you're going to do well. For whatever reason, this is the class where I have the most like A's and passing grades from people. Also get the best writing from people. I don't know why that is, but I imagine you're going to do well. Just stay engaged with the topics. It's all about sex anyway. Most of the time, people are very curious, and it's the easiest class to get people to engage in. To get them to show up is the hard part. If they show up, they're in. Man, they're going to be super interested. All right, so don't drop the class unless something comes up, and you absolutely have to. But you have the 5th to do that and get all your money back. Last day to drop without getting a W in the class is September 7th. Right, so just a couple days after that refund date, but they are not the same day, right? Keep that in mind. The last day to drop the class and get a W is Halloween. It's October 31st. I love Halloween. All right. That'll be easy to remember. Okay, and yeah, and if you're gonna drop the class, let me know too. This is all for you, by the way. Like I don't need to drop you. It doesn't affect me at all. But I'm trying to do this for you. So right, so maybe you owe less money, or you can maybe drop without getting a W that's on your transcript. That would be great, right? So stay on top of that, and I promise I will too. Excuse me. Okay, the course schedule kind of looks like this. You've got a couple chapters. Some weeks there's like 2 chapters to look at, but that's because they're just so interconnected. So on this first one, the perspectives on sexuality is kind of short. It's kind of like the history and different ways to think about human sexuality. Um, yeah, so that's chapter 1. Most of the time, I'm going to be looking at and focusing on chapter 2, which is the research within human sexuality. Like, what do sexologists do, right? And then the second week of our class is about sexual anatomy. It's kind of broken up into like 2 big categories based on sex, male and female. Yeah, I realize that it's not always that black and white, but we'll be talking about, typical female sexual anatomy and typical male sexual anatomy. Later on, we'll get into, the atypical, right? But yeah, so don't worry, we're not going to be left out if that, is you. And then on September 8th, this is the first time you have anything due. So you have some time, is what I mean. Like if you don't get the quizzes done for chapters 1 through 4 and the discussions, like, I don't know what to tell you, you had a long time to get them done. You had like 2 weeks. So just don't get those turned in late. But check it out. Here's all the things we're going to talk about. Of course, anatomy. We'll talk about sexual arousal and response, like what typically goes on in people's bodies when they become aroused and when they have sex and then after sex. And, what does that look like? So a lot of that is pretty biological. We have love and communication in intimate relationships. So we'll talk about both those things independently, but they go hand in hand. Love and communication. And we'll talk about sexual behaviors. We'll talk about sex for sale. Um, some of that is can be lighthearted, some of it is kind of dark. Um, but that's the chapter for you. Conceiving children. We'll talk about that too. Some of you, may want to have kids. Some of you don't, but it's good to think about. Get to get some insight. Um, officially. We'll talk about contraception, right? Safe sex. We'll talk about STIs, as you might imagine. We'll talk about sexual difficulties and solutions. Atypical sexual behaviors is like, type of sexual desires or behaviors that most people don't engage with, but these people with these proclivities do exist, so we should talk about them. Some of those are like diagnosable things. Some of them are just not. They're just atypical, right? Okay, we'll talk about sexuality during childhood and the adult years. So this is kind of like, a developmental couple of chapters. So that week will be like, developmental sexuality. Chapter 9, toward the end, we'll get to sexual orientation. Then we'll talk about gender issues. And then we'll get into sexual coercion. So many topics we're going to go over, right? That relate to all of us in our lives. I love teaching this class. I love it. It might be my favorite class to teach. It's I think it has become my favorite class. Yeah, I think it really is. So this should be a good semester. I hope you have a good time. If you have any questions, drop them. Send them my way. I will get back to you. And if you need to see me during office hours, 6 to 7 p.m., you know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be right here in this room, sitting on Zoom, hoping that you guys show up so I'm not getting bored. All right, gang. I look forward to working with you all. I'll talk to you soon.